All right, so we'll go on. Holding by Pirke avos, ethics of our fathers, as is known. Again, we'll go on. Holding by Pirke avos, ethics of our fathers, as it is known. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. This is part 8, and there'll probably be part 9, part 10, part 11, as we work our way through. So, I spoke last week at the next part of the Mishnah, and that is do not anger easily. Right? Again, they each said three things. Rabbi Eliezer says, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. We spoke about that quite a bit. And do not anger easily. So we started speaking about that. We started speaking about that last week, and we're gonna continue. We're definitely gonna continue with that. So here, very interesting. What did the beginning of the Mishnah say? The beginning of the Mishnah over here says, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Right? Then it says, don't get angry, right? Or let's say better, do not anger easily. Right? We mentioned last week, it doesn't say don't ever get angry. Right? That would be a situation no one could really handle, because we do get angry, at some level. Right? So it doesn't say, oh, never get angry. What he's saying is don't get angry easily. So, okay, what's the connection between the two? What's the connection between let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own, and do not anger easily? Right? So the Tana over here is telling you and giving you good advice. What's the good advice? Good advice is, if you want to stay away from anger, then what should you do? What did the Mishnah say? Let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. He says, if you want to stay away from anger, you should let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Right? Just like you would not want to be scoffed at or laughed at or made fun of, right? So too, you should guard yourself from saying anything to your friends or about your friends that will show them dishonor, even if you think it's a minor thing. Right? Now, this comes up a lot. This definitely comes up a lot. Right? And that is, someone's going to say, they made an innocent comment. What they think is innocent. So what happens? The other person gets offended. The other person will say, hey, why'd you say this? What would the other person answer? The other person will say, you're right, I said it. So even if I said it, what are you so sensitive about? Why are you being so sensitive? Who says the person being sensitive? I mean, maybe they are. Right? But the reality is, the person made a comment. Seemingly an innocent comment. Well, guess what? People don't like innocent comments. You're going to be careful. Right? Just like you wouldn't want someone to mock you. Right? Someone to scoff at you. So you too got to be careful. You got to be careful what you say. About your friend. You got to be careful. Right? Anything you're going to say that potentially could show them dishonor, or you're making fun of them, that's bad. Because you don't want it done to yourself. Now, you would tell me, well, this would seem pretty obvious. What you don't want done to you, don't do to anyone else. Right? You have to show respect for everybody. Right? The question comes up, yeah, the person's a heretic, person's this, person's that. I got a right to say what I want. So we've spoken many times. The laws of Lashon Hara don't let me. I'm not allowed to just repeat anything I want. There are conditions. There are conditions what I'm allowed to say. What I'm not allowed to say. Right? The Avos Chaim we mentioned many times. Avos Chaim says even if you meet all the conditions, I'm not talking about someone's a heretic. Right? even if you meet all the conditions, doesn't mean I should say it. Right? What would be the obvious question? I met all the conditions. I jumped through all the hoops the Chofetz Chaim wants me to. Permissible. So technically, maybe true. But the Chofetz Chaim here says no. He says even though you think you fulfilled them all, right? There are a number of conditions, and even if you think you fulfilled them all, think again. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're just fooling yourself. Maybe you're going to say this is really a benefit. Right? That's the excuse everybody uses. This is what we call a toelis. There's a benefit. Right? The most used excuse. There's a benefit over here. Right? There's a benefit. Now, if it's a real benefit, very good. That's if it's a real benefit. If it's not a real benefit, you're doing it because you have an axe to grind. Right? That would be Lashon Hara. Then you wouldn't be allowed to. The person will say, how do you know it's a benefit or not a benefit? Again, before you open your mouth. Before you open your mouth, the Chofetz Chaim is going to tell you, be careful. Be careful about anything you may say. Think once, think twice, think 3 times. Because you may have a bias here. You 100% may have a bias. You may think you don't. You may think, a lot of people say, I'm doing this for the sake of heaven. Yeah, may not be true. Maybe you have an axe to grind. So it's not for the sake of heaven. You have an axe to grind. Doesn't make it permissible to say what I need to say. If I meet, again, the Chofetz Chaim says, even if I meet the conditions, Chofetz Chaim tells you, you better be careful. You better be extremely careful. Because who's to say you fulfilled the condition the way you should? So you're going to say, what? I don't have a right to say? I don't have a right to say anything over here? You do? Maybe. Got to jump through hoops. Right? 7 conditions. 7 conditions. If you meet all the 7 conditions, very good. Then really, in theory, you could. Right? You could speak about somebody else. But you got to make sure those 7 conditions, those 7 conditions are met. And if there's a doubt about one of them, or you have a certain bias, so now you're using this condition, say, no, I fulfilled it. When the reality is the evil inclination comes and says no, or eggs you on, and say this is a benefit. People have to know this person has to be exposed. Maybe it's true. Or maybe it's not. I was mentioned, I see somebody, not that I'm looking for it, comes up my feed sometimes. Somebody makes a video. Somebody makes a video, can barely pronounce any Hebrew word. Okay. I have an issue with that, but okay. Right? It's the same thing. This one's a heretic, comes out against Christianity, different things. Okay. Right? I know the quality, what are you going to speak about? More or less. Now the person will say, yeah, I can warn people. I got to be out there warning people. Pounding down the pavement. Put on all these different pages. Make sure people aren't heretics. Good. Question is there better, can you find better things to do with your time? Is there any mitzvah? We mentioned this many times. Is there any mitzvah for a non-Jew? Forget a non-Jew, a Jew. For a Jew to bring other non-Jews close to their own mitzvahs, i.e. to know halachos. Is there any mitzvah? And we mentioned no. There's no mitzvah. If a non-Jew comes and says, I want to learn about the Noahide laws, come and teach me. So then you got an obligation. Then you got an obligation to teach them. If you don't know how to teach them, you don't know the information, you got to pass them on to someone else who does. Right? So to say that a non-Jew has an obligation, not true. What's someone going to argue? Someone's going to say, you're the chosen people. You're supposed to be a light into nations. That's your job. My job, you're right, is to bring Torah to the world. That's our job. Right? Sanctify God's name. That's our job. That's true. Yeah, make sure the Jews know the Torah. Make sure Jews keep the Torah. Inspire them. And a non-Jew wants to learn, very good. So let them come and learn. If they want to convert, okay. They fit the criteria, very good. If they don't fit the criteria, okay, they can still have a portion of the world to come. Right? But it's a very far-fetched thing. When I say far-fetched, I mean far-fetched. The fact they'll say, hey, you're light into nations, you have an obligation. What's my obligation? My obligation is to reach out to Jews, not non-Jews. That's my obligation. If a non-Jew wants to learn, Gemara says, God will put them in the right path. If they want to do the right thing, God will help them. If they want to do the wrong thing, God will not stop them. So very good. So if they want to come to the Noahide laws, they want to learn what they're obligated to do, they'll find someone to teach them. God will put them in the right direction. I have to sit there and be pounding the pavement, looking for non-Jews, right? I've had people take me to task. I'm, spamming non-Jews and I should get a real job and other things. Well, I'm kind of good at what I do. I love non-Jews, except maybe the ones in my family, but okay. And that's, that's forbidden. Why is it forbidden? Why is it forbidden? But this is a big jump. If there's a big jump to say that a Jew has an obligation to reach out to non-Jews, that's a big jump. I'll tell you a bigger jump. Non-Jews reaching out to other non-Jews. I'm talking about an obligatory, an obligation here. So you got somebody saying, yeah, you Christians, you got to wake up, right? Got to bring them out of idolatry. Who says that's your job? First of all, I tell you, spend that time you're making these videos and learn Hebrew. Learn how to read Hebrew, right? That's what I would tell you instead of wasting your time making yourself look like an idiot. Okay, that's your choice. That's your choice. So, right, time and time again, right? Well, what's the person doing? They're making videos against Christians. Very good. Very good. Right? Convincing, trying to show, this is a fallacy, this is wrong, and they're wrong about this, they're wrong about that. Okay. Is there an obligation to do such a thing? For a Jew, there's no obligation. Let's make that clear. There's no obligation. If a non-Jew wants to learn, we got an obligation to help them. But I'm not pounding the pavement looking for non-Jews. Non-Jews shouldn't be pounding the pavement trying to convince non-Jews their own mitzvahs. They're going to say, how are they going to find out? If I don't make these videos, I don't put them in groups, how are they going to find out? They'll find out if they want to find out. If they want the truth. Right? I remember once someone telling me, it's a terrible thing. You got all these, all these Hindus, and you got, all these people in India worshiping cows and different things. And it's sad they're going to be wiped out. You're right. It's sad. It's idolaters. 100%. What are we supposed to do? Supposed to reach out to them? The millions of people that are, worshiping cows, right? That's what I should be doing. There are 13 million Jews don't know the alphabet. Can't read Hebrew. We're going to look out for our own first. That makes sense. But if that cow worshiping person wants to come out of it, they could find information. They get contacted by people, there, other places, they want to learn, interested in learning, very good. If they have internet service, other things, great. So they're showing tremendous self-sacrificing. Somebody wants the truth, they'll find it, bottom line. If they want the truth, they'll find it. If they don't want the truth, doesn't matter what anyone says or does, they're not interested. Can't bring the cow to drink, right? Or the horse to drink, right? But I don't want to digress over here. Somebody wants the truth. The Talmud says somebody wants the truth, God's going to help them. God will put someone in their path to help them. You don't want the truth, you want fantasy? Okay. Fantasy sells. And God will say, okay, I don't know, I'm not going to stop you. You want to go in that path? That's your choice. You want to go in the right path? I'll help you. So over here is a very interesting thing. So over here you'll say, I have to look out for other people. In other words, I don't want someone doing something to me that I wouldn't want done to them. Right? In other words, if I don't want something done to me in a negative way, why should I go out, God forbid, and do something negative to someone else? Right? So that's the connection. Right? That is the connection. That's the connection over here. That's the connection between the first part of the mission. Connection is, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. So what's the connection? Not getting angry. Because just like you wouldn't want to be scoffed at, you wouldn't want to be made fun of, right, by other people. You have honor. Right? I'm not saying people should worship the ground you walk on, but you're a human being. You deserve respect. Everybody deserves respect. Certainly business people do that. Why do they show respect for a customer? Right? I remember someone saying, the customer's always right. You don't want to lose, right? You never want to lose customers. That's true. That's very true. But at the same time, certain things or many things you would not want done to yourselves, you shouldn't do to others. I mean, that's pretty obvious. If you don't want someone, what's the word, trying to convince you of something that's not true in order for you to buy it, you shouldn't do it for someone else. You 100% shouldn't do it, right? That's called fraud. You're building something or you're telling someone something that is not true. I remember a friend of mine told me this story because he heard it with his own ears. Guy comes to a great rabbi, and a friend of mine was there also. I asked him a question. He says, Rabbi, he says, I got certain quality cloth, grade A, grade B, grade C. So he says, Rabbi, I want to sell it grade A. No, obviously there's a problem. It's not all grade A, right? That would be fraud. That's misrepresentation. Very good. So his Rebbe says, I don't understand the question. So he asked the question again, a little bit louder, a little bit slower. Well, the Rebbe stopped him. He said, listen, I understood the question. I'm not deaf. I understood the question. It's stealing, Geneva, stealing. Why do you think it's permissible? And the person said, Rebbe, it's business. Can't make this stuff up. It's business. Right? That's what people do. People rip off other people. People misrepresent things and sell them as grade A when they're really grade C. And they just doctor it up and all these other things. Okay. Are you allowed to do that? Nope. And aren't you allowed to do that? Nope. Fraud. Right? That's something basic. That's one of the universal laws. Right? Universal according to everybody. Who says you're allowed to misrepresent? That's the case. The Gemara gives that you have a slave. You want to sell him in the marketplace. He's older. So what do? You color his beard. If he's got some gray in the beard, make it all black. Right? It was here, same thing. Can't do that. That you're not allowed to do. It's very simple. Fraud. You're misrepresenting. You're misrepresenting to make more money. Now, at least this person asked the question. I shouldn't laugh. But the person actually asked the question. Am I allowed to do this? What do you think? Guy's off his rocker? What do you mean you're allowed to do it? It's stealing, misrepresentation, fraud, right? Fill in the blank, right? That's what it is. You're not allowed to mislead somebody, thinking it's something that it's not. If the other person misled himself, different issue, right? If he thought he was getting something great and he didn't check into it, he got a cheaper version of it, that's his fault. He didn't ask enough questions, different things. Okay. But if someone's selling him something as A and it's really B or C, that's false. So we say over here, We say over here that since you don't want anything done to you in a negative way, whatever that negative way is, you don't want to do that to someone else, right? That's the connection. That's the connection over here. Let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. And then it says, do not anger easily. So therefore, you wouldn't want something done to you in a negative way, so you shouldn't do it to someone else. Because why? Because if it's done, what's it going to lead to? Anger. Right? You're going to get angry, or the other person will get angry. So you don't want to do that. You want to treat people with proper respect. Right? You're driving down the street. There's how to drive and how not to drive. You walk into a store, you're standing in line, different things. You have to be impeccable out there, certainly as a Jew, right? An Orthodox Jew got to be impeccable. Said this many times. You don't want to give anybody the ammunition to say anything. Nothing. Except the fact that, wow, stays in line, doesn't answer back, does what he's supposed to do. Very good. So the person will say, thank God his Rebbe taught him Torah. Thank God his parents taught him Torah. Very good. But once someone stands out of line or someone does something, that's a little bit dicey, right? A little bit dicey. Odoji, as the English would say, then that looks bad on everyone. Looks bad on everyone. Even if you think it's something minor, right? That's the whole thing over here. You're going to guard yourself from saying something against your friend. You don't think you said anything really wrong. And what do? You dishonor them, even if it's something minor. Now, there are people out there. There are some people out there that do not have common sense. Why don't they have common sense? I can't answer. Right? That's above my pay grade. There's some people who do not have common sense. Right? Even in the religious world, even amongst Orthodox Jews, there are some people who don't get it. Why? I can't answer. Either they don't get it because it's not important to them, or they've never been taught, or both. Right? What comes to mind? What the obvious thing Kaufman's going to say comes to mind in this case: hygiene. Right? Do I have to explain to someone it's not good to cough in your face if you don't cover your mouth, or when you sneeze, or whatever? You don't grab food with your finger, with your hands. Okay, so kids have to be trained. Kids have to be educated. Good. But if you don't educate your kids that way, let's say you don't care. Okay, so they grab the piece of kugel with their hands. Kugel's kind of greasy. Okay. They wipe their hands with a napkin, this, that. Okay. Is that the best thing to do? No. I definitely wouldn't say that. I'm not going to get on this topic because I've spoken about it a lot. But it could be. Parents don't think it's a big deal. So the parents don't think it's a big deal. The kid will do it. The kid won't learn. The kid won't know it's a problem unless someone else says something to him. They won't learn. It's not a value. Right? It's not a value. This is the only conclusion you can come up to. Right? Either they don't think it's a problem, and if they don't think it's a problem, then it doesn't matter. Like, what are you getting excited about? Right? It's not a value by them. But it goes hand in hand. It's either that or they're never taught it. So you say you can't blame them. Okay. I'm not necessarily into externals for the sake of externals, but there are certain things that, like, you would say obvious. You would say obvious. Someone told me the story a number of years ago. Taking their kid to school, they're going up to the door. Someone goes in front of them. They don't hold the door for them. So someone said, "I don't get it. That's rude." I said, "Okay, you're right. It's rude." Because I say maybe the person's having a bad day, maybe they're in a rush, maybe they didn't see anyone behind them. You come up with excuses potentially. But let's say there's no excuse to be made here. Person did something rude. Now, why'd they do it? Those questions I don't answer. Why'd they do it? They don't have half a brain. They've never been taught. It's not important to them to show common courtesy. Common courtesy sometimes can be a fool in a word. Come live in Israel, you see that. Sometimes common courtesy just goes out the window. It's just part of what it is, part of living here. Could be it's Middle Eastern culture, I don't know. But again, you may think, now this is good for El also. You may think what you did or what you said is a minor thing. You might think it's a minor thing. The other person doesn't think it's a minor thing. This other person, gets very angry. How could you do such a thing? Right? How could you do such a thing? Crazy thing. Crazy idea. People are oversensitive. Yeah, maybe. So what if they're oversensitive? Even if they are oversensitive, who gives you a right to do what you want? Even if it's something minor. Right? Even if it be something, you think it's something minor. But again, who are we looking out for? Are we looking out for ourselves? Or should we have common courtesy to look out for others? That's what I would think. You got to have common courtesy. Don't do to others what you would want others to do to you. This is a big thing. This is a cloud gadol. It's a big idea. Big idea in Torah. But the novelty over here is even if it's something minor. Doesn't have to be something major. Something major, I'd say, is obvious. If it's something that's minor, all the more so you got to be careful. You got to think twice before you say something or before you do something. It's also not rocket science, I would think. The problem is people do, people act, people say things, they don't care. They don't care. And if a person objects and say, hey, you're getting offensive over here, say, what did I say? What did I say? They've never been trained. Because they just say what they want. Or let's say even worse. They saw this growing up. There were topics at the table people talked about, probably what we call Mishna propes, right? Not appropriate conversation, let's say. The person doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. My family talks about it, so what? But they don't see the bigger picture. They don't have common sense in this area at all. Because they say, well, we spoke about it. What do we, what's the problem? Oh, you're true Orthodox. No, there's certain things you don't speak about. You don't speak about in mixed company. You just don't. And certain things, even in mixed company, you don't speak about. Or not mixed company. They're just things you don't speak about. I sit there and teach someone. Think someone's old enough to know? They don't know. They don't know. You know why they don't know? Because they've never been taught. In this case, never been taught. And never seen it as a virtue. They speak about it. The other one speaks about it. No matter how disgusting the conversation is. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? They don't get it. They think that's normal. Now, how do you explain? How do you explain to someone who doesn't have any sensitivity? How do you explain to someone who's got no sensitivity? Can't. They don't see it. Oh, I know other families speak about this, so why can't you speak about it? Because it's not right. It's not right. Period. You don't get it? I can't help you. There are certain lines that are crossed that can't be crossed. It's not appropriate. So explain to somebody that never been taught that. It's not sensitive to them. That they don't see it even according to common sense. They can't see outside the box, so to speak. Can't see it. Because in their house, that was the norm. Okay? In their house, that was the norm. We could use that as an excuse for all kinds of things. Right? You got the story. You got the story with what's his name? With this convert who converted this black rapper, Nathan Black. He grew up in a crack house. That's how he grew up. Right? Listen to his story. He's got an amazing story. Yeah. He didn't have a normal upbringing. He said to himself, he's lucky to be alive today. Should be alive today. So I'm going to say, you're going to say that's normal? Well, parents got arrested and relatives got arrested, cousins got arrested. Like, that's the norm. Yeah. The way you grew up, that's the norm. In the bigger scheme of things in the world, is that the norm? In the most households are crack houses? No, that's not the norm. In the most Orthodox, houses and shopping staples, certain things you just don't speak about in public. You just don't. Period. Some people don't get it. Okay, in my house it was normal. Yeah, in 99% of other houses of other Orthodox Jews, these topics not talking about. Period. In public. In mixed company, even not mixed company. They're not talked about. You want to say that's the norm? What's the norm? The 1% or the 99%? What about sensitivity? Where's sensitivity? So then, like, why get so upset? Because there are people out there that think I can say what I want, when I want, how I want. You don't like it, too bad. Go eat cuckoo. So I'll tell you, if you're a guest at someone's house, I don't think you're going to do that. That wouldn't make so much sense. But there are people that are insensitive. Very good. That's the point. There are people that are insensitive. So if you say something to someone, and the reality is, you don't think it's bad. You don't think it's bad at all. We're not going to say something major here. You don't think it's so bad. The other person gets upset. You're causing the other person now to get upset. Very good. You're causing him to get upset or her to get upset. They're going to say, I don't understand what they're getting upset about. I didn't really say anything wrong. But to them, he did. That's being insensitive. That's causing them to get angry. So don't say something to someone that you would not want be said to you. But a person's going to ask, guarantee, someone's going to ask, how do I know what those boundaries are? How do I know what those boundaries are? I would tell you, if you have a doubt, person said something, or they're going to say something, and they have a doubt how the other person may take it or other people may take it. So I would tell you, my own personal opinion here, I don't think it's a minority opinion though, I would tell you think twice before saying it. Because you don't know the repercussions. You don't know how far that could go. You say something and how it affects someone else. Now, you may make a mistake and you think, oh, this is appropriate. This is not a big deal. Okay, let's say a person made that choice. They made that choice. Very good. They made that choice. Now what? They make the statement. Person gets upset. So you say, why is the person getting upset? So they'll use a number of excuses. One excuse is, don't worry about it, I was just kidding. Right? Number of times, interesting. The Gemara brings down, many cases, person, said something and it looks like he meant this or they meant that or they meant something else. In order to get themselves out of it, they say, or try to get out of it, they'll say, I was just kidding. Right? The question is, the sale goes through, it doesn't go through. Depends what the intention was. But a lot of times the Gemara will say he was kidding. Right? I was only kidding. Okay. Is that a good excuse or not? Is saying I was only kidding, does that get them off the hook? But if someone says something and they see the other person gets upset. So that's one thing they'll say. That's one thing potentially they'll say. They'll say, I was only kidding. I was only kidding. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat about it. I was only kidding. Okay? That's one thing. The other thing they could say is, I didn't say anything wrong. If I didn't say anything wrong, why are you getting so upset? It must be you're very oversensitive. Now, you might be oversensitive. Or you might be very sensitive, however you want to say it. So, you don't like people saying certain things. Someone makes fun of Judaism, let's say. And you take Judaism really seriously. And then you start making fun of like these quote unquote, these antiquated laws, and how they're backwards and how they don't make sense. And well, they're right, it doesn't make sense. A lot of the Torah doesn't make sense. Okay. But they sit there and mouth off. And they say certain things. Now, some people, maybe not only insensitive, they also got anger, maybe coming from a good place, let's say, give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they have anger. And then they start saying, you're like the Taliban. You're so fanatical, you're causing, the Arabs to attack all over the place. Like the Arabs don't attack when there's a left-wing government. Okay. And you're causing this, and the Orthodox that, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you done? You done with your rant? Like, you realize half the things are 90% of what you said is totally not true. Right? Okay. But some people, they have to vent. They don't care. Those people don't care. They'll say what they want. They'll say what they want. You get offended. It's your problem. 100% your problem. You don't like it? That's who I am. So you can have a choice. Spoke about this in my group coaching last week. Yeah. Depends how bad it is. How much someone wants to put up with this. But here someone not only is insensitive, they don't care. They're not going to say it's insensitive. This is I tell it the way it is. And that's the way it is. And you're this, and you're that, and you're the other thing. Okay, so you make a choice. Should I really speak to this person anymore? Is it worth it? Family is blood, yeah. Blood is thicker than water, yeah. Right, but the point over here is what? That you got to be careful what you say to someone else. Now, what you may think is not a problem, and let's say, I'm in a generous mood here. Let's say it's something relatively minor. It's something relatively minor. But that person doesn't think it's necessarily so minor. And they blow it out of proportion. So now the question is going to be, did I just put a stumbling block in front of them? Right? You're doing something, they're getting angry, or they may get angry. You caused them to get angry because you were not sensitive enough. Now, a person can make an innocent mistake. Right? We'll make this easy. A person can say something they had no negative intention at all. No negative intention at all. Not to make fun of them, not to belittle them, remind them something they don't want to be reminded of, something, whatever it is. Something they have absolutely no intention of antagonizing the other person. And the other person gets annoyed. So you got to be careful. 100% you have to be careful what you say. Because if you're not careful what you say, over here, then what's going to happen? Then what's going to happen is you cause a whole fight. You cause the other person to get angry. We don't want to have that on our conscience. We don't want someone to be angry because of something we did or something we said, even if it's something minor. Now, this is the same thing. Yeah, or I should say it's different in the sense where, someone, let's say, starts making fun of Torah. Even blasphemes against Torah, and you answer. They say, no, that's not really true. It's this, it's that. It's the other thing. And the person still keeps going. Now, the more fuel you have, the person's going to keep going on and on and on. The question is, do you have an obligation to say something or not? Now, if a person said something, they say worse things. Now, what's the person going to say? The person's going to say, not my fault. Why is it not my fault? Or, let's say better, could be your fault. Why? Because there's no prohibition. It's called don't put a stumbling block in front of someone else. In other words, if you see they're saying negative things against Torah, and you answer them and say, no, it's really like this, or it's really like that, and they continue to say even worse things, okay, so you might have an obligation, a serious obligation to rebuke them. Okay. That's not putting a stumbling block in front of them. If someone asks you a question, I think the Torah is anti-pig, right? Well, they didn't really ask a question. They say, I think. They ask the question, you think the Torah is anti-pig? What would we say? No, the Torah says certain things you can eat, certain things you can't eat. Oh, I think that's stupid. I think it's backwards. I think, whatever. Did I just transgress? I'll use myself here. Did I just transgress a Torah prohibition of putting the stumbling block in front of someone? No. Why not? Because the Torah says that certain things you're not allowed to eat. And there are certain things you're not allowed to do. So you're telling what the Torah says. Now, if someone comes along and says this, that, and the other thing against it, I'm not putting stumbling block in front of them. I'm answering what the Torah says. They could say, I don't like your argument. I think it's bogus. I think this. Right? Give another argument. They say the same thing. A third argument, say the same thing. Okay. They have to know, who we have a discussion with. Some people you give, the greatest answer in the world. They don't care because they don't want to hear it. It just goes right over their head. It's better not to have discussions with these type of people, probably. Well, I'd say, I don't know, it's family members, it's a cousin, it's this, it's that, whoever it is, And they may sit there and, make fun and take pot shots and this and that. Okay, it's a different issue. Do I really have to speak to them? Do I really have to answer? But it's not putting a stumbling block in front of them. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. But I'm not talking about something major. I'm talking about something that could be even very minor. The problem is you said something that ticks someone up, but you didn't think it was a problem. You didn't think it was a problem. I'm talking about something minor. Very minor. That most people would just blow up. Most people wouldn't even think about it. Okay. So, if that would be the case, I would say you still have to be sensitive. You got to be sensitive to other people. What if you said something you didn't know? You didn't know. Let's say you meet somebody. You meet somebody. And one of the questions is, so how many kids you have? And they don't have kids. Or they can't have kids. Or they have one child and the secondary infertility. Right? Means they have one child and they're having a lot of difficulty having another child. So, person's gonna be sensitive. Yeah, it's a question that gets asked. I'm not saying it's necessarily right. You can put someone in a bad position. Let's say someone's married 10 years, 15 years. Or even less. Well, back now, Orthodox Jews, they all have big families. While there are people who can't have kids. Or have a lot of difficulty having kids. Right? So person asks, well, one of the first questions the person's going to ask you, meet someone new, is, where you from? What do you do? Right? That'll be probably the first question. What do you do? Right? As if to say that matters, in the bigger scheme of things. And then the question eventually you get to, oh, you're married, you're single, you have kids, you don't have kids. Right? It's a common thing. It's a common thing. Someone could be put on the spot. See, we don't think in these terms. We're just sort of asking, we don't necessarily think. So now that's not necessarily a minor thing. You're just doing what everyone else does. You're asking the same question everyone else does. Yeah, I'm not saying it's right. What happens? You come across someone, he says, oh, been married number of years. Oh, how many kids you have? One, or none, or whatever. It's a question that gets asked. You're single, you're married, and then how many kids you have? Now you put someone on the spot. Again, let's say they don't have kids. They haven't married to have kids. You put them on the spot. Now, how they're going to react is a good question. They may just blow it off, but if they would say, well, God hasn't blessed us with children yet, how is the other person going to feel? The person wouldn't even think twice. What, vibrant, relatively young, what? You don't have kids? I mean, everybody has kids. Don't most people have kids? I think most people have kids. Is that an insensitive question? It could be. Because now someone comes back and says, what do you mean? I don't have kids. I haven't been blessed with kids. Imagine what your reaction is going to be to that. You had no idea. You had no idea. So you think, in this case, I don't think it's a small question, but let's say it's an innocent question. Most people you're going to come in contact with, they have a number of kids. Okay. Some have more, some have less, doesn't matter. You came across someone who doesn't have kids or can't have kids. And now that person turns around and says, I haven't been blessed with kids yet. And let's say you deduce they've been married for at least 10 years. As part of the conversation. You want to go into a hole and crawl into it. Because now you made someone feel uncomfortable. Again, it's a topic of most conversations when you meet somebody for the first time. Where do you live? What do you do? If they're married, how many kids do you have? Right? It's in the top 5 questions for sure. That could be an insensitive question. Most people ask it. Okay. It's because most people do things doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Well, in this case, insensitive. Right? And, insensitive. Right, here someone said something negative on Moshe Rabbeinu. So he said, you gotta be careful. Right? They know what they're talking about, whatever. And he walked away. Very good. Again, if you would have answered them and they would have said worse things, that's not your fault. You shouldn't think that's your fault. But yeah, if they're ignorant and they're sarcastic and this and that, drop the conversation. There's no point. I can tell you with a lot of people, you can speak about anything, just about, almost anything. But there's one thing you can't speak about. The one thing is like a 4-letter word. What do you think that is? God, Torah, mitzvah. That's what it is. Can't speak about it. If you want anything else, except Trump. Can't speak about Trump either. Right? That conversation can't come up either. So there's certain things you can't speak about. You talk about other things. Yeah. I'm just pointing out that even something minor you may think is minor could be extremely insensitive when you say it. So you got to think before you speak. The Gemara says you got 2 things to stop you before you say something negatively. One of them is like your teeth, and one of them is your tongue. Right? Before you get it out. You got an opportunity not to say it, to stop. But what's the problem? People say they don't care. That's the way of the world. You don't care if they curse, and if they curse, you just got to deal with it, and don't be so sensitive, like everybody does. someone cuts them off in the street, what's the first thing they say? They'll come up with a 4-letter word. You mother, whatever. Someone could be 75 years old, doesn't matter. Not talking about young kids. Talking about quote unquote adults. And if you tell them this, they'll think you're off your rocker. I think you should be careful about cursing. They'll laugh at you. Man, careful about cursing? I'll curse whenever I want. What do you care? It's not your problem. Something like that, you're not going to get rebuked. They're not going to listen. They're not even going to hear the question. Not even going to hear the question. So yeah, when someone blasphemes and this and that, or they're ignorant, it's different. Again, it's a different issue. We're talking about where someone has to be careful, even something relatively small, relatively minor. We think it's minor, and to them it's a big deal. I'm not talking about cursing. I'm not talking about blasphemy. These things are not small things. These are not small things whether the person knows anything or not. Right? Whether they grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho, no offense. Anyone who grew up as a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. They don't know anything. They don't know any better. But that's not a small thing. You got people who blaspheme and do other things. They don't know anything. Okay. When they start saying things against Moshe Rabbeinu and against laws, all this doesn't make sense. It's stupid, and the Torah, God forbid, is stupid. And okay, that's not a small thing. That's not a small thing. That's why when someone's insensitive, that doesn't think it's an issue, a small thing. But they don't think, oh, this is, what do they think? They think, oh, in this case, if someone were to say it to me, that wouldn't bother me. Wouldn't bother me in the least. Okay. And maybe it's someone else that wouldn't bother. Maybe 100 people wouldn't bother. Maybe 1,000, maybe 1,000,000. Maybe, 90% or 98% of people wouldn't bother. But what would happen if you say something and bother somebody out there? You say, my bad luck, I picked the wrong person to say it to. We got to be sensitive to others. Even something innocent, even something innocent can be a very sore topic for somebody. Take something that, take a guy I've never met. Right? Talking this and that, say, oh, you're married. Guy's older. You can tell he's older. He's got gray. Never married. Might be a very sore topic. Can't make assumptions. Right? We know what happens when you assume. Right? But you cannot make assumptions. Because he can say, well, most people get married. Okay. But there are people that don't. Or there are people, that don't have kids. Or even worse, there are people who don't want to have kids. I had someone ask me this, a number of years ago, a woman. She's thinking about converting and this and that, but way too much of a feminist, and her husband wasn't on board anyway. But, that was one of the questions that came up. She said, is it a bad thing? I said, I would say it's unnatural. Because I think most women want to have a child, I would think. At least a natural child. I guess if they can't, go through a surrogate, but let's say they can't do either. Yeah, most women want to have a child. At least one. At least one. But to say a woman in general says, I don't want to have kids ever, and they don't have kids, that's a little bit strange. In today's world, nothing's strange. But in quote unquote the real world, strange. That a woman would be so much against having kids or wanting to have kids. It's not a natural reaction. No, sorry, it's not a natural thing. When it comes to a woman's nature, it's not natural. Totally not natural. It'd be one thing to say, I want to have a few kids. I don't want to have too many. Okay. But say I have no interest in having kids. From a guy's perspective, okay, but I can hear someone say, yeah, I don't want to have kids. But most people want to have a continuation of the next generation. You hear it every so often. Someone will come out and say, yeah, absolutely no interest in having kids. For a guy, I could hear that to a point. for a woman to say it and to do it. You get someone who's not going to get married. Someone, went to my parents' synagogue, a couple of years younger than me, saw that, she didn't have any prospects, but she had a child by herself. I don't know, sperm bank, in vitro, whatever it was, right? Whatever it is, had a child because she knew she wasn't going to have a natural child. I don't think she's still married to this point, but she wanted to have a child. I mean, she got money, so not an issue raising a child and whatever. But but for a woman to say, it's strange. It's in this day and age, nothing is strange, but according to nature, that's strange. Because when kids grow up, or let's say better, when kids are younger, girls are not jumping on each other like boys and this and that, and playing with cars and different things. What are they doing? They're playing with strollers, with dolls, their own babies, quote unquote. That's the norm. That is the norm in general. But for someone to say, I don't want any part of that, a little bit strange. I don't want to digress here, right? But the point, but the point is that do not do something to someone else that you would not want done to you, right? Even if it's, now the novelty over here is, you're going to say, well, that's a big idea in Judaism. You're right, it is, right? But where's the novelty? The novelty is you don't want to dishonor someone or make a comment, some sort of negative comment, or it comes across negative, even if it's something minor. Even if it's something minor, because you don't know how the other person's going to take it. You have no idea how the other person's going to take it. Even if you would say, and even if you would prove, 99.99% of all people would never get upset, right? Never get upset or never, get angry over here for something so minor. Let's say, but you picked on the wrong person here. You picked on the wrong person. I'll say what's even worse is, let's say you said something to somebody, right? You make a comment to someone. And what happens is they take what you said out of context. Now, this can definitely happen because they're not paying attention, they're not really listening. And what happened? You make a comment, you said something. Now, you might have thought it was an innocent comment. And that person, first of all, misheard what you said. And then they take it, then if you said it, now, if you made that statement, and they would get upset by that statement, then you shouldn't have said it. Right? But there's a case where you said something, they quoted something else. They heard something else. So I made a statement, I'm not going to say what it was, whatever, many years ago. And I said I felt like X. Not that I was X. I felt like this. So the person said, oh, you're saying this? I said, no, that's not what I said. I was very specific. I was very clear. I said, I feel like X. Now that statement should never have been said. And to this day, whenever it comes up once in a blue moon, I just move on to the next topic. Because that topic I'll never, ever win. Because it goes around in a circle. You said this. No, I didn't. I said like this, not this. So that person heard what they wanted to hear. Even though the statement shouldn't have been made. But they heard what they wanted to hear. That's it. So you got to be careful also. You're going to say, what, I have to be sensitive to what someone hears? Yes. You want to enunciate things. You want to make sure it's clear. There are people who say things that they don't want you to hear. And they'll say under their breath like you're not there. But I'll tell you one thing. If you do such a thing, you better make sure the person doesn't hear what you said. Because if they hear what you said, you hear what they said, they get really ticked off. Right? So, happened to me, of course. I told the story before. I was my father's brother passed away many years ago, and I went to Boston to live in New Jersey at the time, and I went to Boston to the mourner's house, right? Whatever, cousin of mine, his daughter, right? His daughter's house. So anyway, I was there, and someone came in, saw me, hadn't seen me in a long time, very long time, and his brother much older, right? And this woman wanted to give me a hug, and I took 2 steps back. 2 steps back because I wasn't allowed to hug. I mentioned this last week also, right? I spoke about touching someone of the opposite sex in the Q&A. So what was I gonna do? I got myself out of the situation. I didn't look pretty, but whatever. I took 2 steps back. I said, so nice to see you. Whatever. I wish I could argue. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. So then someone right next to me, obviously, didn't think my ears were good as they were, and muttered something under their breath. What do they mutter under their breath? Person's so old. What are you doing? You're a nut. You're a fanatic. Under their breath. As if like nobody heard anything. So whatever, I blew it off. Nothing I can do. And that's it. Right now, I mentioned the story because it's a good story. Right. But if you're going to say something under your breath, because you're angry at somebody or whatever, you make sure that person doesn't hear it. In other words, if you want to say it to their face, be brazen enough to say it to their face. I think you're a fanatic. I got somebody doing that on a regular basis. I think this, and they'll say it to my face. They'll say it over the phone, whatever it is. So be brazen, say it. If you're going to be obnoxious, say it. If you're going to mumble it and mutter it under your breath, the person you're speaking about better darn well not hear it. Because that's as if you said it to their face. And you said it in public. That's just as bad. That's just as bad. Right? So, in certain situations, I always say, right, as we always say over here, you don't win. You're not going to win. That's it. Right? But again, speaking to other people, you have to be careful, even if it's something minor, and you have to be sensitive. That's the connection. That's a connection to the first part of the Mishna. Because the Mishna said again, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. And if you do that, then you will not get the other person angry. Because that's the next part. Don't anger easily. They go hand in hand. Right? So the Tana over here is telling you, and he's giving you great advice. The great advice is, right? The great advice over here is that you want to stay, how do you stay away from anger in general? Let their fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Things you would not want said to you, you should not say to others. Even if it's something minor. Because you don't know how a person's going to react. You don't know how a person's going to react. So you want to nip it in the bud, you don't want to have any problem. You do not want to have any problems. Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing. Second thing is that, says Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah says over here that even though anger is a terrible character trait, which we understand, one of the worst character traits that a person can have, he says, even though it's so bad, people are drawn after it. Right? In other words, you ask somebody in general, do you like getting angry? Maybe they'll say it depends what it is. But I don't think most people like to get angry. They don't want to get angry. It takes a lot of energy. Right? It takes a lot of energy. So it's very strange over here. Rabbeinu Yonah says, yeah, it's so bad. One of the worst character traits ever. But people are drawn after it. Meaning, Then even though after a few times a person gets angry for whatever it is, they should be careful not to get angry easily. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? So Rabbeinu Yonah says, person has to weigh whether something that is going to be said or done is worthy of getting angry in the first place. And the reason someone's going to get angry, even at the slightest thing, would be worthy to get angry at. Meaning, you shouldn't get angry at it. Over here. Right? So we make the decision one way or another. If something is said, am I going to get angry about it or not? Is it something worth getting angry about? Right? That's really the question. Now, there are things that deserve an answer and deserve an answer back. No one has to be a dish rag over here. No one has to be stomped on. Right? But you don't want the anger overcoming you where you lose control. Now, if someone says something obnoxious, you don't necessarily have to answer it. Right? As we always say, if someone makes a statement, you don't have to answer a statement. I think Judaism discriminates against women. What's the answer? Oh. Or you say, okay. Then a person's like, I think Judaism is anti-porn. Okay. You're not asking a question here. If they say, if I were to ask you what you think of Judaism, is anti-women, what would you say? Okay, that's a question. That's already a question. Now you have to see someone's got an agenda, why they're saying it, right, etc. Maybe they're saying it to get under your skin. Maybe they're saying it because they want to make fun of you. Same thing, right? Get under your skin over here. So the question is, there are people who like to argue with other people. They just like to argue with other people for the sake of arguing. Get them lit up a little bit. Now, this anger, I'm not going to say it's like blown out anger, where someone's going to say, oh, is it not in control? No. But it's interesting, Rabbeinu Yonah says people are drawn after it. So if you ask people, now it depends what level of anger also. Right? Let's make that clear. Right? It's not going to be, every little thing is going to draw this out. Right? But it depends what level here. What level of anger. So isn't all anger bad? Isn't the Rambam says come to the middle ground, the middle path, go to the opposite extreme and end up somewhere in the middle? Right? So you say if you have to discipline a child and you have to get angry, so Rambam says, okay, you got to discipline a child. Anger is really bad. Fake it. Fake the anger. Don't let, do not. First of all, never punish when you're angry. If you have to punish a child, it should never be when you're angry. Why? Because you don't see straight. You don't think straight. So you got to be careful. And not only that, if you have to punish a child, punishment has to fit the crime. You cannot punish just a knee-jerk reaction. Right? So that type of anger where you have to make a point to a child, that you still have to be careful of. Because if you fake it, and you fake it very, very, very well, you don't want one tinge of real anger. And that's not so easy to do. Not so easy to do. But any little anger, it takes effort. It takes effort. Who wants to just get, who wants to get angry for the sake of getting angry? Nobody. You're like, what do I need more aggravation? So even if a person does get angry, let's say, they get angry a few times, different things. What does the Mishna here say? The Mishna here says, do not get angry easily. So even though after a few times the person may get angry for whatever it is, do not let it overcome you Do not let yourself get angry easily. Further, you get frustrated, many different reasons. Further, you get frustrated, don't let it lead to anger. Do not let it come so easily. You gotta say, but sometimes you go through so much, you go through so many different things, right? What can happen is it overcomes you. It overcomes you. What do you do? What do you do in such a case? Okay, it overcame you. So now you gotta realize, okay, why did it overcome you? What's the trigger? What's really the underlying reason that you got upset? So now, once you pinpoint the reason, if you're triggered, you may have to role play doing this. If you get triggered, how am I going to answer it? How am I going to overcome it? How am I not going to be put in the same situation, come up with the same reaction? So it means over here, a person has to weigh something that is said or done. Is it worthy to get angry about? Right? I had something today where could have said something, more annoying than angry, right? Could have said something. I looked the other way. Very hard. I'll tell you, it was very hard to look the other way. But I looked the other way. Because I knew I would have said something, it would have come out wrong, whatever, and I didn't want to do it. So I didn't. I mean, other reasons also, but whatever, I didn't. I looked the other way. It's a personal pet peeve of mine, but okay. So you have to decide, is this worthy of getting angry about or not? And you have to think what the repercussions are if you do. Because what can happen is you get angry at the slightest thing. And if it's something that is relatively small in general, then you'll say, well, that is worthy to get angry at. And that's wrong. Because this in general shouldn't be something to get angry at. It's something relatively minor. But sometimes when it comes to kids, it doesn't matter. Right? You still have to educate them. If they're your kids. What if they're your grandkids? It's not your place necessarily to discipline. So sometimes you may see something, you got to stop. Or you say to your child, look what your kid's doing there. Let them deal with it. Right? But again, if that was something, you'd say something for your own kids, say no, grandkids different. Right? And sometimes you have to watch certain things. It's hard. It's definitely hard. But you have to ask yourself, is it something deemed worthy to get angry at? And it may not be. Right? You might have a personal pet peeve or whatever, but it's not something you should make a big deal about. It just bothers you. Okay. So for you, it's worthy, but it might not be. Right? That's the question here. Right? And in such a case, if you're not careful, and there are people who get serious anger issues for a number of reasons. We spoke about last week a little bit. Right? And that is, you start letting other things annoy you. And other things that annoy you are not worthy of being annoyed by. You don't matter in the bigger scheme of things. So you have to ask yourself, why do you get upset about it? Why does it get under your skin? A legitimate question. It shouldn't get under your skin. You're right. So what that can do, though, in a negative way, is that once a person got angry a bunch of times for whatever, the Mishna is warning you, do not get angry easily. What can happen is, person lets even something minor get in. They get angry in that, and then it snowballs. Snowballs. Why should you let something minor anger you? You say I'm under pressure. This thing is hard. Something, whatever it is. You got less sleep. A lot of bad things can happen when you get less sleep, when you're sleep deprived, because then you don't think straight. Your body needs rest. And for whatever reason, you're not getting it. So if that's true, that throws everything off. So something that wouldn't normally bother you now, because you're tired, you're irritated. So any little thing bothers you. But even if that happens, once you get on an even keel and you're more back to yourself, you can't let this thing ever come back. In other words, once you already got angry about it earlier, and you only got angry really, you lashed out. Why? Because you're, either you're going through difficult things or you're sleep deprived or whatever, but you never would have reacted in such a way in general. So now, next time around, you got to be careful. Got to be that much more careful, to make sure you do not, fall that way. Because then it's something that is relatively minor, let's say. And now your mentality is, oh yeah, this thing happened before, I'm going to get angry again. And it annoyed me. But why did it annoy you? Why did you get angry? In this case, you were sleep deprived. When you're sleep deprived, everything annoys you. By a woman that time of the month, hormones going crazy and this and that. Also, they can get irritated, more irritated than they normally will. Reason is because it's not something they would normally get irritated by. Because they're in pain and hormones and all that. So that can cause other things that you gotta be careful of also. Because certain things that wouldn't necessarily bother you when everything is fine, now you let in because you're not feeling well or whatever. Right? Also keep in mind, so someone there asked, how do you educate arrogant children? It's not your own. Oh, good question. Children have to be taught in general. Children have to be taught to share with others. It's not always so easy, right? They have to learn how to control, themselves. Just because someone does something doesn't give you the right to just go up and smack them, even if they took a toy. Someone came along, took the toy they're playing with, which obviously is wrong. Yeah, and then they come up and just like smack the kid and take it back or try and take it back. They have to be taught. The kid who took the toy, against the other person's will, got to be disciplined. Said, you don't have to do that. You have to understand it's not yours. No, but it's mine. It's my turn. Right? So maybe set up turns, whatever it is. But also that other kid that hit the first kids that tried to take it or took it is also wrong. Right? So he's got to be taught. He's got to be taught properly. Right? He's got to be taught properly here. You can't just react. Right? You can't just, just because you're angry or whatever. It gives you the right to do whatever you want. Kids understand. Even at a young age. So, obviously the older they get, the more they understand. Okay. Right? The problem is, as the question here, let's say this kid is spoiled. Parents spoiled him. This kid always gets their way. Whatever happens, they always get their way. Yeah, that's never good. That's never good. So that kid's going to have it hard in life. 100%. Because a kid like that always thinks everything's coming to them. Always thinks they deserve it. You take the most cuddled people today in this world, i.e., either people in the entertainment business, i.e. actors or actresses and professional athletes. I would say the most cuddled people that exist. Always told how great they are and what they do and this and that. Everyone waiting on them hand and foot. Now, some of them stay humble. Some of them. Right? I'm not taking a survey. Right? Maybe a lot of them do. Maybe. I don't know pretty much anyone in Hollywood. Right? But money can corrupt a person. Hanifa telling people that they're the greatest thing since sliced cheese and sucking up to them, etc., because of what they do, because of their athleticism, because they know how to stay aligned, they know how to act, or whatever it is. So people like that are going to have issues. They're going to have issues later on in life. And you see the lives that they lead in general. Totally immoral, never happy with what they have. You might have all this money in the world, but got a lot of other issues. Right? Now, somebody like that, well, you just use them as an example, get to a child in a second. Somebody like that who will say is 100% they think they're God's gift to the world. Arrogant with a capital A. So the avos and others say, how do you beat arrogance? What's the opposite of arrogance? Humility. You have to go to the other extreme. Real humility. That's how you beat arrogance. Always thinking you're nothing. Always thinking I always have room to grow. I haven't fulfilled my obligation in anything. You always feel like you're at the bottom. Now, you have to have a certain level of self-esteem also, right? But that's how you beat arrogance. Even if you tell me, listen, I'm doing a lot more than, most Jews, and I'm learning a lot, this and that. Okay, that's very good. You should feel good about that. You have to realize in the bigger scheme of things, what we're doing is a drop in the bucket, right? As much as we learn, the Torah, as King David says, it's as wide as the ocean, as expansive as the sky, etc. Drop in the bucket. Okay. So we're learning a lot. We're trying to be better people. Very good. You have to have a certain level of self-esteem. Can't let it lead to arrogance. Yeah. So arrogance gets beaten by humility. It gets destroyed by humility. If a person's truly humble. If a person's truly humble, they realize everything they have is only because God gave it to them. Right? And when we pray the Shemona Esrei, we say the Shemona Esrei every day, we say, Atachonim Udam Das, right? 4th paragraph. We ask for knowledge. We say, God, grant us knowledge, not give it. Grant it. What type of knowledge? Spiritual knowledge. It's going to be something He wants to give us, something we have to ask for, not something that's a given. No pun intended. All right? It's not a given that we're just going to learn and we're going to understand. And we're going to be these lofty individuals who know a lot of Torah. No, God has to give it. You have to ask for it. Right? Not just, it's not just, God just handed to him. No. He'll grant it if He sees the person's a vessel to get it. But a person could have knowledge, and quote unquote real spiritual knowledge and be disgusted in God's eyes also. Only because they don't internalize the message. Right? But that's a different topic. That's a different topic. The point is, how are you going to beat arrogance? Humility. Right? That's what an adult would need to do. Is to show that all their talent, quote unquote, all their raw talent, everything they've done, it's only because God gave it to them. That's it. They worked on it and they perfected it and this and that. Okay. They think they did everything. Not true. Right? Convince them that, you got $1 million. Right? They're not going to see it that way. They're going to say, I did everything. Like I took myself out of the womb. Really? You took yourself out of the womb. Very good. You clothed yourself, you fed yourself, you did everything yourself. Some people say yes. Some people may say that, right? Because I had this conversation with somebody. Someone said, I became who I am despite my parents. Okay, I knew what they meant. Maybe they didn't have the greatest parents and whatever. Okay, but, my comment was, so you did everything yourself. Self-made person. You know, bathe yourself, clothe yourself. You did everything yourself. Again, I know what they meant. I just wanted to see that, they still have to have, still have to give thanks. At least, parents brought them in this world. They took care of their needs, regardless of what other things that might have happened. But okay, that's arrogance. That's arrogance. That's saying I don't need God, I don't need anybody. I did everything myself. Like I came out of my own petri dish. I did everything myself, really. So yeah, after they fed you and took care of you and put you through college and everything else, paid for everything else, and then you went and did this, that, and the other thing. Okay, but they gave you the base. They for sure gave you the base, regardless of what they did after, before. I'm not even going into that. They were evil, they weren't evil, whatever. I'm not even going into that. But they'll do it to say I did everything myself. That's arrogance. That's real arrogance. They won't see it as that. They'll say it's confidence. Like, look what I did. Right? Good. Now, that wasn't the question. The question was, an arrogant child's not your own. Right? So let's say you're trying to teach them. Right? So you have to give examples to them of why their behavior is bad. And a person can think, well, I'm better than this kid, or I'm better than that kid because, I'm smarter. I have more money. I come from a different type of family. Something like that. So, obviously they have to be told that even if they're smarter, so to speak, the other person is also a human. It doesn't mean just because a person's smarter than someone else, that makes them better. What if that person, even if they're not as smart, but they do 10 times more acts of loving kindness than what you do? And they're liked by other people more, even though you're smarter. Smarter doesn't make someone better. I mean, look at the Germans, what the Germans did to the Jews. They were smarter, right? They were probably the cream of the crop of that generation, right? They were the cream of the crop of that generation. Look what they did. Killing a Jew was or let's say better, treating a dog, you treat a dog better than you treat a Jew. They were convinced of that. The intelligentsia of Germany, of what Germany was at that time. Yeah, so intelligence is not such a big thing here. Not such a big factor, because intelligence does not lead someone to be moral. Right? That we mentioned many times. In this case, a child has to understand. Right? A child has to understand. You have to see really why they're arrogant. What makes them arrogant over here? Those are accused of that to a certain point, to a certain extent. That, in different ways. One is, I don't like kids around me when I was younger, or at least non-Jewish kids around me, because I don't like their values. I don't want them in my house. I didn't like what they stood for. So, someone would say, but, I get these people. You're right. I don't like what they do. So I got involved in a Jewish group and, had some nice Jewish friends or whatever. But then when by 11th grade, I saw also people were snobby. People also were arrogant for whatever, different things. I also didn't like that. So I didn't like that either. So there are other times where people will where a person says something in a confident way, and they think, quote unquote, they're right, they'll take that as arrogant. No, that's for sure not arrogant. Right? In other words, a person's confident in what they know. Let's say they're confident. So someone says, "Oh, you really got a chip on your shoulder." No, I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I think I'm right. I have a lot of evidence. You want to hear the evidence? No, you've been brainwashed. Very good. So unbrainwash me. Let's duke it out. Let's have a discussion. No, I'm not gonna have this discussion. But they look at that as being arrogant. That's not arrogant. If I would sit there and brag how much I know and what I've learned and what I've done in different things, that's not arrogance either. That could be. Sorry, let's say better. That could be. Sitting there bragging. Look what I've done here. Look what I've done there. But if you think about it, it's a drop in the bucket. compared to what our obligation is. Because then someone can say, yeah, but look at all the time you wasted doing this, doing that, doing the other thing. You're right. That's true. That's for sure. So a child has to learn that everyone's equal in general. We're all the same. Some people may, dress this way or dress that way, more intelligence, less intelligence. Kids are cruel. Kids are very cruel. They don't care in many ways. They don't care what they say, unless they care what they do. Some can be more intelligent, less intelligent, and it gets in the way. Person's got a big mouth, it could get in the way. It can definitely get in the way. But a child has to be taught proper values. They have to see why they're arrogant. There are kids that, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. There are kids that have affluence. Parents have money. So during breaks in school, they fly here, they go there, they do this, they do that. And what they may do is they may just look down upon other people, don't. Or there are secular Jews. I'm not gonna say it's a good thing. There are some secular Jews that have a lot of money, mega wealthy. Who do they hang out with? Other people like themselves. Other mega wealthy Jews. Why? What's the obvious answer? They look down on other people because they're mega wealthy. Is that right? Certainly not. Certainly not. You'll say you hang out with the people that you're around, that in your same socioeconomic situation, this and that. But kids have to be taught. No one's better than anyone else. What makes someone superior, quote unquote, to someone else. It depends on what the source of the arrogance is. It could be money. It could be, it could be athleticism. They're better than other people on the ball field. They're better academically. And they look down on others that, are not as smart. So normally you would say people of the same category stick together. People less smart are not going to necessarily hang out with people that are smart, or smarter than them. That's not who they identify with. Someone who's quote unquote brainy is not going to be part of the popular club. They're just not. They don't, they're not going to be as popular. So yeah, kids that you have to, first of all, you have to see what's behind it. You have to see why they're doing it, why they think they're better than others. Could be a lot of different reasons why, potential reasons why. But then if you catch them doing something where they're like, what are you coming to me? I'm this or I'm that, or they have to show that they're, they have to help others. They have to be benevolent. They can't think they're better, they're better than others because of, how they grew up. Someone asked, that what is meant by let our soul be like dust to everyone. No, it doesn't say dust to everyone. It says dust under the feet of the righteous. Right? We're not talking about, that's not humility. That's like someone gets to the next world, someone happened to merit getting into the next world. But what does it mean? Right? I use two examples here. I don't think this is what you meant. But if a person made it to the next world and they merited to be the dust under the righteous, that means they got a portion of the world to come. Even a small portion, but they're at least dust under the feet of the righteous. What it means is to be dust, it's showing humility. Right? That's probably what it means. It's showing humility here. That you don't think you're any better than anyone else. And not being better than everyone else is the ultimate in humility. Again, it doesn't matter, It doesn't matter how you grew up. It doesn't matter socioeconomic situation. You're no better than anyone else because everyone's created the image of God. Some people more popular, less popular, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, that breaks arrogance. That exactly breaks arrogance. Is that you feel subservient to everyone else. Doesn't mean you worship everyone else, right? What it means is you feel, as it says, like the dust. You feel like the dust, so to speak. You feel like the dust by everyone else. That's humility. Right? In other words, you don't think you're better than anyone else in any situation. It's humility. All right, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about you being humble, truly humble. Right? Not just being, having your house open to righteous people and this and that. Right? But it's talking about everybody. Because everyone's created. So Elohim. Everyone's created in God's image. They have to have respect. Should have respect. Now, if someone disrespects you, it's one thing. At the same time, you still have to be careful over here. Someone asks, what if a child thinks that the teacher is nothing? And no need to follow the rules. So that's a problem. Right? And most children follow that, by the way. Most children think that, rules are made to be broken. But they have to know. These are the rules. This is what you have to do. They can think the child is square. The teacher is square and the teacher doesn't know what they're doing and this and that. But they have to know rules have to be followed. And if rules are not followed, there are repercussions. In school in general, you'll have people that, may break some of the rules or may try and break some of the rules. But if that would be the case, where everyone's doing whatever they want, well, guess what? That's chaos. That essentially is chaos. Teachers have to, teachers have to have their own, self-discipline where they know they're doing the right thing and this and that, where, children have an obligation to have respect for the teacher. Today, can't say what goes on today, right? In general. There are people that hate certain teachers that are extremely strict. What does it mean extremely strict? They don't take any garbage. They lay the law down. You got to do this, you got to do that. These are the rules. That's it. They have to know the repercussions. 100%. I would say that most students probably don't respect teachers. In that sense. They don't want to, first of all, they're in school for a long time, in general. They don't necessarily like what they're learning, also it doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. They may not respect the teacher, but they have to. There's just no, ifs, ands, or buts. They say, it's my class. These are the rules. This is what you have to do. And, a teacher has to learn, how to discipline. How to discipline the class, because that can, I know of stories where people first, come in to teach and they give them like one of the hardest classes. A lot of kids act up, and act out, then it's like a hard class to control. It's like they're thrown into the wolves, at the very beginning. So that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, how to control a classroom, and how to, how to get that respect. The problem is that you're gonna have some kids that don't, just don't want to show respect. Not interested in showing respect. Right? So, what a person has to do in such a situation is they I'm not saying you have to go down to their level. You don't have to go down to their level, per se, but you want to try and win them over, in different ways, where they will show respect, where they will be on your side. Some kids, again, depends what they're going through and different things. Some kids are just hard to deal with. You get someone's got ADHD, right, or ADD, whatever it is. They're jumping off, they're jumping up and down, this and that, and it throws everything off. So, classroom control is a pretty important thing to learn. right? And if you lose control of part of the class, you lose everything, right? Somebody asks, not be easily moved by people do or what people say. That's true, right? We can't be influenced by our environment, that's for sure, right? But it happens all the time because, the media is very powerful. So people think things and do things based on what they see. Well, based on what they see, I can speak about this for a long time. Based on what they see is bad. It's backwards. It is wrong in many ways. I mean, the leftists have an agenda today, certainly in the States. And you see what's going on. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Boys aren't boys, women aren't, girls aren't girls. Everything's thrown on its head, because it's a progressive agenda. Totally thrown on its head. And everyone's caught up in it. And if you say anything against same-sex marriages and this and that, you're in trouble. Not only in trouble, you lose your job. You got to show respect where you shouldn't have to show respect. Well, why can't I believe what I believe? That's that's a crazy thing. So people are definitely swayed by their environment. I don't think there's anything to talk about. I don't think there's anything to talk about. People caught up in things that they should never be caught up in. Agendas that are just backwards is not the word. I can think of other adjectives. But someone here mentioned a good point. Some teachers in schools don't deserve respect. Okay. Now that may be true. That may be true. Right? So that's a different issue. I'm talking about teachers that deserve respect. Teachers who don't deserve respect, you got to be careful also. Because they could, I'm sure many people have been in a classroom where they say the teacher's out to get me. And it's true. It's very true. No matter what they do, they're held to a higher standard. I had one child that was, very outspoken. I'm sure you can't imagine that. Right? Very, very, outspoken. And certain things that her friends did, they didn't get disciplined for, but she did. Right? So she felt, they were out to get her. But the problem was, this person's a real go-getter. So they claimed, might be true, that this person was like the gang leader. And they had tremendous power of influence. Because of the power of influence, they wanted to nip in the bud. So they let other things slide by other people, but they wanted to nip in the bud by her. Right? Or by him, whoever it is. Right? So what do? They use them as an example. Yeah. So in other words, they get slammed for something that, let's say, their friends don't get slammed for. But they have different reasons for doing it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Maybe it is right. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Okay. But at the same time, there are standards. Let's say, for argument's sake, a kid gets up late on a regular basis. They come in late a lot of times. Now, obviously, you got to you got to go to school at a certain time. You got to be there on time. Right? So what are they trying to teach you? Get better sleep, get more organized, different things. Okay, even if you're traveling to another city and you miss the bus and whatever. Okay. So that person gets singled out and say, how are you going to function in life if you're not really disciplined? So what are they trying to tell them? Get more organized. Don't miss the bus. Get up on time. Go to sleep on time. Doesn't always work out. Okay. So I heard someone say, look what I'm doing now. Look where all that discipline got me. That's not the point. No matter what you're doing now, and a lot of stuff they learned in school was useless and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. Because they're going to say, how are you ever going to hold on to a job if you can't get up in the morning? All right, it's a good point. But guess what? The person's making money, regardless of how much, you'll get up in the morning. Okay, get up a little bit later, you come later. In school, how many people come out of the school saying they love school? Not so many. Not so many. They're following the rules, and it was hard, and whatever, and they got disciplined. And here someone gets blamed for things that, again, other people may not get blamed for, but they're holding higher standards. Is that right? I'm not saying it's right. I'm not going to say that's right. Yeah. But their school experience they had a bad school experience. Very bad school experience. So the person comments, see, look at what my teacher said. Look at all my teacher said. I'm gonna, I come in late all the time, and this and that will never amount. How you ever gonna hold down a job? So now they're working at home, and now they're very successful, very good. So they say, see, they're all wrong. They're not all wrong here. They're all, they're trying to teach something here. Trying to teach. It's important to be on time. Right? Get out people coming in at different times. It's chaos. It's total chaos. Right? So yeah, you have to be there at a certain time. And you got to make sure you get there. And school books are in order. You're ready for school. You got a test, and you're going to be ready, and this and that. Right? Regardless, number of years later, you're going to say, see, even according to them, look what I did over here. Look how successful I was. They're all wrong. No, they're not all wrong. That's not the right attitude. They're not all wrong. Because essentially, they're trying to teach people, how to live in the world and how to be organized. They're going to say, maybe it's too early, maybe that. Doesn't matter. That's what they're trying to give over. They're trying to give over values and give over knowledge and whatever. I'm not even talking about teaching. I'm just talking about getting there on time. It's important to be there on time. How are you ever going to get up and, and hold the job and get up on time? If it's that important, you'll do it. You get 3 hours of sleep, it doesn't matter. You'll do it. School's a drag for most people. It is. Even in the religious world, it is. I'm not saying it's right. Right? Kids need to be disciplined. They need to be organized. They need to, they need their stuff organized. They need to learn how to study, right? Not an easy thing to teach either. They need to learn how to study. They need to learn the material, but they need to be organized. And you can't make an excuse and say, well, look what I became despite them. Yeah, I get it. But that's the wrong attitude. They want you to be on time. There's a good reason they want you to be on time. It throws classes off. Imagine, most kids show, you're supposed to be there 8 o'clock. First class is, let's say, I don't know, it's 8:30, right? Let's say first class is 8:30, and 40% of the class shows up at 8:45. Teacher's in the middle of the lesson, all of a sudden 15 people walk in. 8 people walk in, throws everything off. The rules are what they are. I'm not saying all the rules are great, but they have a right to discipline. They have a right to want people there on time. It makes perfect sense. But you're right, there are bad teachers. There are bad teachers, and you hope they don't destroy your kid in the process. Someone says one teacher was marking some of the girls. Yeah, it's a problem. There are teachers that can destroy. There are teachers that can destroy, even in religious schools. 100%. 100%. It's a problem. It's definitely a problem. If a teacher has it out for you, you're in trouble. No matter what you do, they just nail you for any little thing. It's hard. I don't. Whatever. It destroys a person's self-esteem. Right? The religious world can cause people to go off because they get hammered so much. And they always see things as just, these are the rules. But they don't see the beauty of Judaism. That's why girls, go to seminary a year after, being in school, when they're 18, in order, that's why a lot of people come to Israel, go to these schools, pay tens of thousands of dollars, etc. Be inspired. That's a year, but it should be a year of inspiration. First of all, they're not at home. But second of all, it's part of the whole experience seeing Israel, but learning and learning more in depth and learning more about themselves and and other things. So it's a huge thing. So some people saying that they charge too much and how can they afford it, and all these other things. Okay, that's true. That's a different issue. But it's not all doom and gloom. And if girls are not inspired, right, which a lot of them sometimes are not, inspired. Okay, some of them go off and do their own thing. Others, go for a year and they get more inspired. They get more inspired, but it's not all about doom and gloom. They have to love Judaism. And it's sad after 12 years, they'll go for a year just to get inspired to undo what was done to them before, which is sad. So I think it's sad, in that sense, because that you really get the love of Judaism, not just these are the rules and do it, or, you don't pass your exams and this and that. You got to, it's about how to live a Jewish life. It's about, values that, Jewish women should be getting, whatever. And yeah, it can be negative sometimes. And I always say, because I had, 5 girls in the system, and, it was hard. Some of them better, some worse, but it was hard. It was, system, needs to be improved. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question, but, you have to have love of it also, not just these are the laws, this is what you do, and that's it. And you can't question anything. That's, people have questions. They're allowed to ask questions. They should ask questions. Doesn't make them a heretic. Doesn't make them a heretic. Somebody mentions public school teacher. Oh, you can always tell it was child's parents, obviously now they raise their kids. Yeah. Right? Very true. I would agree. Education starts at home. You're right. You're right. A lot of things that, even though kids are in school, a good part of the day, if they get out at 2 or 3 or whatever it is, where's the majority of education coming? It's at home. 100%. They see what the parents do. The biggest role models are the parents. For better or for worse. For better or for worse. That's where the role models are. That's where it starts. That's where it ends. All right. And the parents have to train them. You're right. All right. I would also agree. Now, someone says, well, I see problematic kids. Sometimes one of the parents is not in the picture, or that the parents themselves are mature also. There are also other things going on behind closed doors you don't necessarily know about either. Right? But yeah, you can see that sometimes parents are clueless. Could be. Could be because they just are. Could be there are other things, other stress going on in their lives. But 100% right, the kids are who they are because of who the parents are. That's just the way it is. So, if there's a problem, with a kid in school, I mean, something that, shouldn't be, it's usually something going on in the house, usually. That's definitely true. But that, again, where does the majority of education come? It comes from the parents. So the parents are to blame either way, right? And in other words, if the kid's doing well and they're excelling, so parents get all the credit. Parents get all the credit. Yeah, even if one of the parents isn't so good, whatever, but the parents will get the credit. If the kid's not going to the right path and they're struggling, so the question is why. Now, sometimes they'll struggle because they have learning disability, right? That very well could be. But even if it's not a learning disability, 99% is probably comes from the house. It comes from the house. And, the parents are struggling, or, they're fighting between the parents or different things, comes out in their kids, right? 100%. 100%. Someone here says I said the same thing, but it's not true, right? That the commandment to be fruitful and multiply. Sometimes people are not fit to be parents. Well, I'll tell you like this. Kids come about in this world because God allows it. Some people won't have kids or have less kids, right? Let's say. So I would have thought the same thing. I would have thought some parents are not fit to be parents, but guess what? God allows them to have kids. So if they had kids, obviously felt they should be parents. Now, if they do terrible things to the kids, and do other things, okay. Yeah, that's a lack of emunah. That's saying God doesn't know what he's doing. So that you got to be careful, right? Right. So again, I said the same thing, but someone, pretty much put me in my place and say it's not true. It's a lack of emunah. Essentially, it's a lack of faith the way God runs the world. Because if he didn't want them to have kids, if they were really, they had no good qualities whatsoever, why would he allow them to have kids? So you'll tell me it's biology. You're right. Biology doesn't always work the way it should. But you have parents out there to abuse their kids and do other things. You're right. So why has God allowed that? I can't answer. No one can answer. No one can answer. But God gives children wherever the parents are, for better or for worse. We don't have a choice. Right? We're born against the will. The Mishna Pirke avos says we die against our will. Cop in parentheses would say you still have to live. You still have to live. Yeah? So we can say our parents are this, parents are that. You're right. But you got to pull up your bootstraps also. You may need, a person may need, therapy to get over what the parents might have done. True. That might be true. But that's assuming God doesn't know what he's doing. Right? That you got to be careful. Because if God didn't want these people to have kids, they wouldn't have. God's in control over here. Right? God is totally in control. Now, what happens to this kid and these parents? Okay. But God 100% is in control over here. If non-Jews, they have the job of fruitful and multiply, they have a job to have children. They have 1 child, 2 children, 5 years in between, 10 years in between, right? That doesn't matter for non-Jews. But they have an obligation to have children, populate the world, 100%. Right? But parents who are not in the best financial or social situation, people make decisions. God allows things to happen or not to happen. Now, let's say he allows it to happen. People say that about religious Jews. How is it possible? Why should you have 8 kids, 9 kids, 10 kids? You can't afford it. It's impossible to afford, especially what's going on today. So, and a person that had 2 kids, could a person not afford it? A person can also not afford it. But we live above nature. Biggest miracle the Satmar Rebbe of blessed memory said was not 6-day war. That was not the biggest miracle in recent generations. Biggest miracle is how ultra-Orthodox Jews living in the land of Israel marry off their kids. Or even outside of Israel, marry off their kids. It's a pretty big miracle either way. So you can have difficulty with 1 kid, and each child brings their own blessing. You could have difficulty with 5 kids, right? Doesn't matter. Or you could be successful either way. But no matter how you slice it, because of tuition, certainly in the States, and the cost of living, everything else, it is pretty miraculous. People say that's putting an extra burden you don't need. That's what people say, right? But we believe every child is a blessing. More children a person can have, not a bad thing. But people say, come on, they can't afford it. Not only that, it's not just about money. People say you can't give them enough attention. There's no possible way to give enough attention. You have 10 kids, I'll give enough attention to 10 kids. Possible. And a person has 1 or 2 kids, they can do the same thing. They can say the same thing. They don't give enough attention. They just blow them off. So what's the difference? Like, come on, you have too many kids, it's impossible. Not true. Totally not true. You have to find time. You got to make an effort. Maybe more of an effort if you had 2 kids. You're right. But if you have 2 kids, you can make the same claim. You definitely make the same claim. Right? As I say, yeah, people in certain situations are not, not financially fit, to have more kids. Now it's going through different things. I had more kids. Yeah, I got that also. Like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Why would you bring more kids into the world? Does God run the world or he doesn't run the world? Let's ask the question. Does he run the world or not? He does. Right? Even a person struggling, right? Is that a reason not to have kids? Okay. So, when they come to the rabbi and they ask him this question, should I go on, birth control, whatever? So, okay, there are factors involved. What if a person has 4 kids on the age of 5? And the mother's gonna go ballistic if she gets pregnant. Okay, these are real issues. These are real issues. For a Jew, financial issues don't necessarily come into play over here unless the person's unstable. If the person's unstable, that's a different issue. Right? If they're a mental issue, that's a different issue. Right? But that's not normally the case of why they would say contraception is permitted here. You gotta see the bigger picture. Right? And usually the bigger picture starts with the wife, with the mother. And if she's not going to be physically able, to handle it because she has too many little kids or whatever the case is, right? So, someone may give permission to use contraception. It's a serious thing. I don't want to go into it, but I could speak for the next 2 hours on that also. It's a very serious issue. You can't whitewash it. You can't just say, well, some people shouldn't have kids, or some people should have as many kids. So I would say if there are mental issues and other things going on, it might be true. Then they should go on birth control. No question. You want to talk about certain communities, people have kids when they're teenagers and different things. That's a different issue. That's a different issue. Why would God allow them to have kids? I don't know. And their parents are going to raise them. Or the grandparents are going to raise them. They're going to give them up for adoption. That's a problem. That I would say is a problem. But, you could ask, so why does God allow them to have kids? Why does he allow them to perpetuate the same thing generation after generation? So I would tell you, and no one's going to like this, but I would tell you that's part of the curse. That's part of the curse that Noah gave to Ham. Right? Because that population has never done anything for the world. Africa's never done anything for the world. Been an absolute disaster, if you look at it. Famine, all kinds of other things going on. You're right. There are a lot of coups. There were wars. They were slaves. Right? Also true. It's all true. But how long do you start making excuses for a whole group of people? Especially, you see melting pot of America. You see, Koreans made it there. Other nationalities made it there. Why haven't they made it there? Why has that nationality not made it? You gotta say, oh, come on, you're being racist. Look, they're in ghettos. They've done this. They've been brought up this way, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's going on for generations. They're on welfare and you got single parents. And then you're right. You're right. There are issues, but some of them actually make it. Some of them are actually successful. Right? Again, not a popular thing to say. Says Rav Victor Miller, he says, you got to ask the question. He's one of the Torah giants of the last generation. You got to ask the question, why has that population ever done anything for the world? And they continue to struggle. They continue to struggle. Why is it? He says, you can't make any rational terms out of it. You have to say it's only because of the curse. The only cause. Doesn't make sense otherwise. Especially look what's going on in America. Doesn't make any sense at all. Every other quote unquote ethnic group that's been successful, more or less, not perpetuate the same thing generation after generation. Again, you'll say that's the way they're educated, that's what the communities are like, that's what goes. Yeah. When does it stop? When does the buck stop here? When does it stop? What's the answer according to Torah? It doesn't. It's part of the curse. It's part of the curse. There's no other rational explanation. Again, people are going to say this is racist theology and this and that. There are individuals that can get out of it, not the nation itself, not the ethnic group itself. But there's no other explanation. No other rational explanation. Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, others, it's all melting pot in America. The Italians, other people from Europe came. They did all right. They're not the cause of, certain problems and this and that. Right? Again, it's not popular to say, but it doesn't make sense otherwise. Right? Definitely doesn't make sense otherwise. Could be something going on in school, right? Right. There are issues also, not just, it's a good point. I should have made that point. It doesn't necessarily mean, the only thing's going on at home. A person could be bullied in school. Bullying destroys kids. Right? It could be they're struggling academically where they shouldn't be. Or maybe they have a learning disability. Or you have kids that know what's going on. They study really hard. They only get a 75. Or they only get a 70, 75. They're not good test takers. Okay? That could also lead to bad self-esteem. Doesn't mean everything that's coming from the home. That's true. You're right. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Doesn't mean everything's coming from home. A lot of things, though, that happen, I think do stem from the home. But it doesn't mean it does. It could be other things going on in school, right? That very well could be. John gets bullied in school. Always wants to send the bullied child to counseling. Yeah. Let's call a spade a spade. Someone who bullies, there's an issue there. There's an issue, right? They should be counseled. They should be. Why are they bullying someone else? Could it be that a kid gets left out of certain things because someone has it in for them? Let's say, and the person gets ostracized. That can also happen. Right? So yeah, you got to try and break up that clique also. And try and get that person more included. That's true. That for sure is true. That can happen. Bullying is a serious thing. Bullying that destroys people. That totally destroys people. So, someone who bullies, yeah, I would agree that it's not a normal thing for someone to do. Shouldn't be done. It should not be done to other kids. Shouldn't be done. Right? So, Again, the bully has to be dealt with. If the bully's not being dealt with, that's a problem, right? And the problem is as well is it could be, this kid comes from a messed up house, let's say, so he learned it from home, or he's acting out and doing other things he should be doing. So you gotta get to the source of where the problem is. Definitely have to get to the source of where the problem is. I will tell you, it's a serious problem. It's a serious problem for the kid that's bullied and the kid that's ganged up upon. Now, I would think most people probably, been bullied sometime in their life. I don't think anybody likes going through it. Now, if they're the bully, maybe, maybe they like terrorizing someone else. Yeah, but it destroys people. Makes them not want to come to school, makes them afraid, gives them anxiety, different things, and it's hard to stay away from such a person. Yeah, the school 100% has to get involved. They have to get involved. I don't think there's any questions, especially if a kid feels ostracized, then they are being ostracized by other kids. That kid also needs self-esteem. Can't just have like a whole clique doing whatever they want. They disassociate with someone. It depends what's going on. It depends on the dynamic. Clear. So I mentioned most parents today involved with their children's education. Don't sit right with teachers union and some teachers. Parents have to be involved. They have to be involved. The question is how they deal with the teacher and how they deal with the dynamics going on. They have to be involved. They should be involved. Parents don't send their kids to school and expect them to come back the way they, the way they should. And they just have, they're offhand. They don't do anything. Most of the education kids get it from home. The parents 100% have to be involved. They may have to help them with their homework, get them tutors. They have to do whatever they can for the success for the child, especially in Jewish schools, because they're going to perpetuate the next generation. So they should be successful. The kids should feel that they're successful. The kids should feel that they love Judaism, this and that. Parents for sure have to be involved. It's not enough to send your kid to school and expect they're going to come out right, even if you send them to the top yeshivas and this and that. You got to be on top of it. Rabbi mentioned this many, many times. You got to be involved. You have to be involved. If you're not involved, then you're shirking responsibility. Now the question is, if there are issues, how you deal with the parents and how you deal with the teachers in the school. Okay, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother thing. It depends on what the situation is. But the schools say we're here to help, whatever, and you have to be there with us as well, right? You have to give input as well to give your child the greatest chance for success. But again, it depends on the situation and what's going on. Parents 100% have to be involved. They have to be involved in the success of the children. I don't think there's any question. Now, some will say they're too involved and they're trying to, let's say they give a lot of money to the school or different things. So now they think, oh, they can do whatever they want, and their kid won't get penalized. No, that's another issue. That doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter how much money they give or whatever they do. The kid has to be taught, be treated like everybody else. But can parents overstep their boundaries? Yes. They can absolutely overstep their boundaries, which is wrong. But again, there has to be a balance. But they for sure have to be involved. If parents do not give their children the best way to succeed, they're killing them. They're killing their kid. A kid needs self-esteem. And, if they're not testing well, even though they know the material, you got to get to the bottom of the problem. You got to make them feel successful. 100%. Right? Someone says the grandparents, different issue. Grandparents have to let their kids educate their kids. Right? Now, if they're not doing a good job or there are other issues, they may have to get involved at some level. But I would say, for the sake of family harmony, a lot of times you got to take a step back, unless there are other reasons for you to get involved. That's what I would say. If there are not reasons to get involved, you have to sit and watch. And there's certain things you can't do, but sometimes you have to get involved. So, but I would say you're potentially causing tremendous conflict. And that you don't want to do. That you don't want to do if you don't have to, if you have to. I'll say like this, I told all my kids, And all my I told all my son-in-laws before they got married, before my kids got married, I said, when you walk down that aisle and you're under the chuppah, and my daughter comes down and she encircles you, she's all yours. She's all yours, for good, for bad, for everything. She's all yours. Someone said, what are you, crazy? You said that to your future son-in-laws? I said to every single one of them. Because I wanted them to know, I'm here to help. Whatever I need to do to help, I'll do to help. But you know what? She's all yours. Work it out yourself. If you can't work it out yourself, there are other issues. I'll get involved if I have to. But I don't want to, it's not my business. It's not my business to get involved. Right? They have to know they're getting married. They take responsibility. Very good. Right? But sometimes you might have to get involved. Sometimes you do. I said, I'm here for anything, whatever I can do. But you got issues to work out. You work them out yourself. You want to go to rabbis, fine. I shouldn't be in the picture. I 100% shouldn't be in the picture. You want to come to me for advice, for this, for that. It's one thing, but hands off. Grandparents have to be hands off. Or let's say better, parents have to be hands off. Right? What if you see negative things and negative? Okay, sometimes you have to get involved. But it can get messy. And you don't want to. It's not your life to live. If they come for advice and they're asking you different, okay. It's one thing. It shouldn't be them. You have to let them live their own lives. Sometimes, again, even if you want to get involved, you can't and whatever. And sometimes you have to see them going down a certain path, which is hard to see. Sometimes it's hard to see, but they're old enough to make their own decisions. Okay. And sometimes you just have to look the other way because you have to. Right? There will be times you might say something. You have to be very gentle, extremely gentle. Extremely gentle. And it's hard because then they may take offense and this, and you gotta be careful. You definitely have to be careful. All success, parents, educators, whatever it is, b'siyata d'shmaya, right? It's all heavenly help. That's no question. That is no question. What can we immediately do to increase our help from above? Prayer. That's it. Prayer and our actions. That's what we can do. Right? We have to want to go in the right path. We have to open ourselves up and tell God, help us this, that, and the other thing. Help us go in the right path. Help us educate our kids properly. Every day we should say that. Every day we should pray that. That we give them what they need and we help them go in the right direction. Right? Listen, it doesn't help to read parenting books. Good parenting books doesn't help to get advice either. In certain circumstances, the person needs advice. But the main thing, is heavenly help. You got to pray. Women pray when they light the candles. That's what they pray for. That's many things that they pray for. It's for the success of their kids and their grandkids and and all that. But you need a lot of heavenly help, no question. No question. Yeah. Any other questions? Would that be v'chol? I don't know. I would say that God is kol yachol. Kol yachol means God can do anything anytime. Right? Anything at any time. Right? God has the ability to do anything. So that's our prayer. That's our prayer. I'm not in control. But I have an obligation, to do, we have an obligation to educate our kids according to their path, not our path. Not what we think is best for them. We may think, oh, they should go to this school, that school, the best school, give me a good name. Yeah, but if it's not good for them and they're going to fail, that's bad. Right? It's not about our egos. It's about what's best. It's what is best for them. 100% what is best for them. And sometimes we think we know better. And we think it's best for us, not necessarily for them, and that's bad. That is definitely going to be bad. It's going to be a disaster. So, we have plenty of what to pray for. We should pray every single day. If we have kids, we pray every single day for our kids. And their success in, physical terms, spiritual terms, maybe more in spiritual terms. Right? That's our obligation. That's, we also have to go on the right path as well. And sometimes if we're not sure, we got to go ask. We got to ask what's the best thing to do. What's the best way to handle certain situations. Yeah, any other questions? Right, in general, the word b'chol means in everybody, but I don't know exactly what context you're asking. Yeah, any other questions? All right, we're going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, a little bit earlier. Now the time's getting earlier. 2:00 Eastern time, 9:00 Israel time. Next Saturday night will be Rosh Hashanah, so there won't be a class then. Week after, before Yom Kippur, there will be. So I'll put up a thing this week saying there won't be any class next week. So anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman. Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Pirke avos, ethics for our fathers, Q&As, Torah portion of the week, controversial issues, orthodoxconversion.com. And anyone has any questions, you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Wishing everyone a good